Hello readers, my new book, Bookishly Ever After, has just been released and I am so excited that you can now read it too because I had so much fun writing it. This is the third and final book in the Paper and Heart Society series and I'm so sad that the series has come to an end after 5 years of working on the books, and I know so many of you are excited to read the last instalment, but also just as sad as I am to say goodbye to these characters. So I thought today, to celebrate its release, I would read to you from the first chapter of the book, which I loved writing. I think it might be my favourite opening from any of the books because it makes me laugh every time I read it. So if you aren't convinced yet about whether to read Bookishly Ever After or not, hopefully this will convince you. So Bookishly Ever After is all about what happens when Ed goes to work in an independent bookshop called Woolf and Wilde, and Ed is certainly the clumsiest character out of all of the members of the Paper and Heart Society. So as you can imagine, he gets up to lots of adventures and mischief in his new job at the bookshop. And the first chapter opens up to Ed at a meeting of the Paper and Heart Society. So I'm going to read to you from the first bit. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the life of our treasured friend Edward Eastfield, Olivia Santos said, reading from the piece of paper in her hand. She wiped a solitary tear from her eye. Ed tragically passed away in a horrific murder incident not long ago, the circumstances of which remain a mystery to this very day. He will be sadly missed. The aforementioned Edward Eastfield had to stifle the giggle bubbling up in his chest. From his position in the makeshift cardboard coffin placed on 2 dining room chairs, he couldn't see the others' reactions, but he had no trouble imagining them. Each of their faces would be a picture of intense mourning. He kept as still as possible so as not to dispel the illusion of his death, biting the inside of his cheek to force the laugh away. Olivia went on. In life, Ed was a good friend who cared deeply about animals, Shakespeare and donuts. He was kind, compassionate and handsome, Ed murmured with barely moving lips. Olivia kicked the cardboard coffin, cleared her throat and continued with her eulogy. Although Ed was dedicated to his performance, he did, after all, aspire to be an actor one day. Lying still in a cardboard box with white paint covering his face was getting boring now. Turns out, being a fake murder victim wasn't fun when your only scene direction was playing dead. Ed was beginning to regret allowing Olivia to host the latest meeting of their book club, the Paper and Heart Society, at his house. He'd agreed on one condition, that she let him be the victim in her Agatha Christie-inspired murder mystery party. How long was he going to have to lie like this? Olivia had already taken over the whole house, planting clues for their friends to investigate, and now she was taking an age. He opened one eye and moved his head a millimetre so he could get a better view of the proceedings. Olivia was standing in front of the coffin, and Ed's other friends were facing her, lined up on the opposite side of the living room, all dressed in black. Henry looked even taller than usual in his smart, dapper suit, his hair falling into his eyes. Tabby, Henry's girlfriend and Ed's best friend in the entire world, stood with her arm in Henry's, her dress floating down to her knees. Finally, there was Cassie, Olivia's girlfriend, who had gone to town in her outfit, a luscious velvet suit and her signature Doc Marten floral boots. Oh, Cassie, how nice of you to use my death as a fashion statement, Ed thought, because he couldn't say it out loud without ruining the effect. Olivia had drawn the curtains to create a sombre mood, but had vetoed his idea of lighting gothic candles. Apparently she didn't trust him around flames. Probably wise, to be fair. I'm sure you'll all agree with me that such a tragic loss deserves to be avenged, and that the murderer must be discovered, Olivia was saying, leading up to her dramatic murder mystery declaration. We cannot let our friend die in vain. Fair play, Ed thought. Olivia doesn't have terrible acting skills after all. Maybe she should join me when I rise to acting stardom. We could play Romeo and Juliet at the Globe. Ow! Suddenly, Ed was seized by a cramp in his leg so painful that it felt as if his calf muscle was going to explode. He sat up so quickly that the dining room chairs gave way and he fell out of the cardboard box, landing on the floor. Everything went dark as the box followed him to the ground, covering Ed from head to toe. "Oh my God," he heard Tabby shout, and footsteps approaching, but he was focused on getting out from underneath the box while clutching his leg, which throbbed unlike anything else he'd ever felt before. "Maybe I'm actually dying. Maybe my fake funeral will become my real funeral. This is so painful. Ow!" Olivia, always on theme, cried out, "He's alive! Ed's alive! It's a miracle!" Ed was far from impressed to hear Cassie's wheezing laugh, as if she was trying to hold it in but couldn't. "Are you all right?" Henry called over the commotion. He sprang forward and knelt down to Ed's level, but Ed was writhing around too much to help, ignoring Henry's question. "Oh." Just as quickly as it had arrived, the cramp had disappeared. "Cramp," he explained weakly. Now he felt deflated. There was only a shadow of pain to prove it had ever been there, as well as a small ache where he'd landed on his side. "Don't worry about me. I'll live." His friend said nothing as Ed scratched his head and gazed at their sceptical faces. Olivia looked put out. "On that note, well, you've kind of ruined the dead part, Ed, but there is still a mystery to solve." "I can pretend to be dead again," he said, and put his hand up to his forehead, faking a backwards swoon to the floor. Tabby poked him with her foot, and this time he didn't hide his grin. Suddenly, he had an amazing idea. An idea so good that he had to act on it immediately. So you'll have to read on in Bookishly Ever After to discover what Ed is up to and who the Paper and Heart Society murderer is. I love this chapter and I love the rest of the book, and I hope that if you have already read it and have been very quick about it, you have enjoyed it, and that if you do decide to read Bookishly Ever After, you will love it just as much as I did writing it. I'm really thrilled that Bookishly Ever After is out and that the series is now complete. It is a total end of an era for me, but I thank you for all your support because the experience wouldn't have been the same without you, my amazing readers. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video and the reading from Bookishly Ever After, and I will see you soon for a new video. Happy reading, and in the words of the Paper and Heart Society, don't forget to live your best bookish lives.